Specifying schema using struct. So how do you specify a schema using something called as struct? So for example, let's look at this file, right? So this file contains the data. It contains something called as invoice, customer ID details, age, category, quantity, price, and payment method, right? So if I am reading this data and if I want to define a structure, so basically a schema, right? Saying that, hey, this invoice number should be just an integer and it should not be null, or it should have something something. Same thing with age, it should not have a null, or it should be just an integer. So this is basically we are saying we are defining a schema, right? So how do you define a schema for a data frame using struct? So struct is one of the ways how you can define a schema. There are other ways as well, like case, but this is one of the ways, and this is sometimes asked in the interview question. So usually, like in most projects, you do not use it, but this has come across multiple interviews, so I thought of covering this here. So let's look at this right now. Struct basically contains something called as struct fields. So we have something called as struct field, right? So let me just write it down nicely. So we have something called as struct field. All right. So struct field, it basically defines each column in a data frame. So it defines columns in the data frame. Okay. Now what it defines its name, it defines the data type, it tells you whether this has contains null, basically a schema, right? This is what you call in database like schema, right? So struct field will define each struct field will define all these things for each column, and this collection of the struct fields is what we called as a struct type, right? So this collection of the struct fields is basically what we called as a struct type, right? So this is what struct field and struct type are. So now what we'll do is we'll look at an example. So we'll look at reading this file that we have just seen, and now how the struct type or struct fields are defined, right? So this is basically the Spark job or the Spark code that I have written. So now here, what I'm doing here is I'm defining a schema. So I have struct fields. So again, struct fields are basically defines columns, right? So here I'm defining invoice number. I'm saying it is an integer type, and I'm saying nullable equal to true, which means this can be null. I'm doing for customer ID, I am defining it as string type, which basically customer ID is a string, and again, it is nullable. Age, I'm defining as integer type, category string, price, I'm defining it as double type, payment string type, all of this are nullable. Then what I'm doing is I am basically reading this data frame, right? So I'm saying this header is true, and here I'm applying the schema, right? So if you see here, right, schema, this is a schema that we have defined. So we are saying, hey, I have defined a schema using struct here, and I am passing that schema over here, enforcing that schema here. Now this data, the whatever data that we have, this data will be enforced by this schema. This schema will be enforced in that data, right? And then I'm basically showing this data, right? So this is how you can create a struct type or struct field schema for your data, and then you can basically, you know, you can basically show this data. Now, if you want to refer to any of the columns, you can use this column names here, right? So that is basically how you use struct type. In some cases, I've seen people use it, but most preferably is a case class. But this is also something which has been asked in the interview question, so I thought of covering it.